Welcome to another edition of the Trading Bell. We are covering for you the Building Africa Financial Markets Seminar. And in this particular seminar, a number of issues did come up, and one of them is disruptive technology. None other than one of the key leading minds from Nigeria is actually joining us to help us explore more about this conversation, and that is none other than Ade Bajomo, who is the Executive Director, Information Technology and Operations for Access Bank. Many thanks for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
And first off, talk to us about disruptive technology in Africa. What's the story behind this?
Okay. Disruptive technologies actually offer Africans an opportunity not to leapfrog, as it were, really, but actually, if you like, to actually find a different way around becoming more technologically enabled and using that enablement to empower people and actually drive the development of Africa beyond what we see today. So there are around 4 or 5 technologies driving all of what we're seeing. And at the heart of that is data. Data is becoming more pervasive. So as everybody, more and more people carry mobile phones, now they have a record. We can use those records for all sorts of things. We can even do credit score rating based on mobile phone usages and how people connect and who they call and where they are as a word. So that's the building block. When you then take that building block and you then start layering in some of the technologies we're seeing, then you can see where the potential lies. So the first one, obviously, is the mobile technology, which has become so pervasive. The second one is cloud technologies. People underestimate the power of the cloud. And let me just explain briefly. So if you went back 5, 6 years ago and somebody were to write an application, the guy, a fintech, or the man in his bedroom wanting to be a techpreneur, for them to actually deliver that application, they're about to go and buy a server, house the server, basically incur a lot of startup cost, capex cost. With a cloud, you don't need to do any of those. You just pay a small amount of money for the exact amount of computing power that you require. So it just basically breaks down the barriers, as it were, really. Then you then start adding more technological enhancements like artificial intelligence, or more precisely machine learning, onto this whole thing, and you now start driving analytics and robotics. So it's all these technologies that are coming together. But the one that has got a lot of if you like, focus, certainly in this conference, the ASEA Building African Financial Markets Conference, it's blockchain.
Yes.
Yeah, and indeed the use of blockchain in markets and indeed within Africa as well. And we believe that blockchain has a potential disruptive power in terms of financial inclusion applications. I mean, it's often misinterpreted to mean Bitcoin. There's a big difference between Bitcoin, which is a product coming off the blockchain technology, and blockchain itself.
All right. And one of the striking remarks I picked out of this conference was that the last thing that the world needs right now is another bank. What did you interpret of this? Because we're seeing the desire to deepen financial inclusion. On the flip side, the traditional banking is being phased out.
Yeah. What it tells you very clearly is that disruption will be pervasive. The role of technology is to move us to the next level all the time, as it were. And banks, like every other business, have to lend themselves to understanding the environment, understanding the disruptive technologies coming up, and actually adapt their technology to actually change in terms of driving that disruption. So we at Access Bank believe that disruption can come not just from outside in, but from inside out, as it were. So we have 2, if you like, frameworks around capturing ideas and innovation within our organization, but also enabling innovation to come from outside. And one of the key initiatives that we promoted is the Africa FinTech Initiative, Africa FinTech Foundry, AFF. You could Google it. And what AFF does is that it's actually a standalone operation which runs itself, is that it looks for innovators, fintech companies across Africa, who need who are startups basically, and
we need
put
an
them
incubation
an
kind
incubation
of approach.
kind of approach.
Yeah.
And AFF takes them, incubates them, and gives them, if you like, the muscle they need to actually become proper techpreneurs,
Wow.
as it were. So it's quite something that we're very excited about in terms of what it's doing.
All right. And of course, Ade, one of the things we are seeing changing, especially the banking sector, is even at board level. The format we used to have back in the day, the board meetings would involve perhaps just the director for ICT. Right now, in many boards across the world, we're seeing the ICT resource people in the company are being more proactive, and they're playing a bigger role in sort of casting the vision of an organization when it comes to tech from the Nigerian context. How is this playing out?
What you will actually find, and that's a very interesting question, is that if you go back to Europe, certainly, and indeed the USA, even as way back as 25 years, reasonably technical people have actually been finding their ways to the board, because the banks over there realize very, very quickly that to drive the kind of efficiencies that you need people who are connected with the technology and can connect as well, both from a technical side, board side, and indeed people side with the techies, because techies have a different way of wanting to work and drive into and drives that they need. And indeed, when you look at the millennials or what they call the digital natives,
yes,
the whole landscape changes. Yeah, the way you will manage, if you like, a traditional workforce is not quite the same way you will look at managing, if you like, the digital natives as a warily. So what we're seeing now is that boards, especially within financial services sector, and indeed in other sectors as well, are beginning to realize the role that technology can play as a disruptor, but also as a facilitator for efficiency, revenue earning, opening up new business lines as a warily. And you will see more and more of that. I think, our group MD Herbert has always said, the best digital minds that actually understand financial services will end up being the top CEOs of financial institutions in future. I don't think that's going to be far-fetched. I think we're going to see that could come to fruition perhaps sooner rather than later.
Interesting. The other day, I was just watching something on YouTube, and it was driverless trucks in, if I'm not wrong, in Sweden. And they're making deliveries very precise. Will the same happen to banks, where we have branchless banks?
It's happening already. And there's a bank that actually launched a pure digital play in Côte d'Ivoire about 5-6 weeks ago. Yeah, branchless bank.
Wow.
And there's no reason why that wouldn't happen, because you only have to think about it. In the conference earlier on, we heard Adriana, the rocket scientist, talk about financial inclusion and the use of blockchain technology to actually drive identity management. The key driver here is identity management. Once you can deliver strong identity management on a pervasive scale that is secure and robust, then, quite frankly, you can perform most transactions using a mobile device, as it were. So it's only the next stage. And if you think of it for a minute, when you really start, if you take, let me take Nigeria as an example, with 198 million people and just about 25 or 30% that are in the pure banking environment, the only way we can reach and really drive financial inclusion is via digital means. There's just no other way about it, really. So you will see more and more digital offering, like you've got in Kenya, M-Pesa, but you will see digital offerings not just from a savings perspective, but from a credit perspective. You will see it in virtually a number of ways. But you would also see that banking, as we know it, will have several channels. The branch isn't going to go away. There's still people who want to go to the branch for whatever reason. Oh, yeah. You need cash. You need an ATM. Yeah. The ATM does not need to be in a branch, but you may want to talk to somebody for a problem or a query or a complaint or whatever. But you will have the phone channel, you will have the telephone channel, you'll have the social media channel. The channels will just keep expanding as well.
All right.
And we have to give customers what they want.
Okay. And of course, technology comes at a high price. how do institutions structure this? Because it's one thing to go heavy on technology, and it's another thing to get requisite financing for this.
That is a very insightful question, and that is probably what's going to sort out the winners from the losers. It is those financial institutions who are able to map out a very clear technical strategy, understand the impact that it will have on their revenue, and not just their cost, but their revenue. Because it's almost a chicken and egg situation. Yeah. Quite often, financial services institutions will look at the cost of technology, and that alone, can frighten you out of not investing at all. But also, technology implementation comes at a very huge risk because, there are countless of projects that are failed as well. So it makes people, boards, a little bit apprehensive of making huge bets on technology. But those institutions that can really take their time to understand their markets, how technology can be applied to that market and execute flawlessly, will consistently, and understand the disruption that is coming around their markets, will obviously end up being the leaders in their market space.
All right. So as we come to the end, Abe, how do banks or financial institutions strike sort of a balance where you innovate, at the same time, technology becomes obsolete with time? We've seen banks that went and sort of picked up very good technology, core banking systems. Down the road, things have changed. What should be the approach moving forward?
Yeah, it goes back to the basics, fundamentally, in terms of how banks should act on this. Really, it's always a case of understanding your market, where you want to play, what products you want to apply, and actually driving that through. But some of the big challenges lies in people, especially in Africa, that we need to find creative ways to get more people into technology. And when I say technology, it's not about just going to universities and coming out of universities with degrees. Those degrees, when you pull them into financial institutions, before a technologist can be really useful to a bank or a financial institution, they need probably another 2 to 5 years of training, depending on the specific areas of expertise that you want to drive them into. So financial institutions need to be coming together to perhaps drive the curriculum of some of our leading universities to become centers of excellence, partner with them so that we can get the right people who can come in, not just to run our traditional businesses of banking, finance, and all of those kind of stuff, but also to be digitally minded and digitally enabled to actually power Africa over the next few generations.
All right. I just want to get your last closing thoughts on cybersecurity, because it's one thing to be tech conscious, it's another thing to be prepared for any eventualities that come along with technology.
The only thing you can be very sure of is that you're going to get cyber attacks. That is guaranteed. Yeah. In fact, most, if not all, financial services institutions are already being attacked. It's whether you know you're being attacked or not and what you do about it. But it's a very serious matter. Boards, and I'm deliberately using the word board, digital cybersecurity is a board-level consideration. The risk management around digital and cybersecurity is a board-level consideration in terms of what and how to do, what it is, understanding what it is, and how to mitigate it, and making sure that there are proactive steps to mitigate it as well. You only need to step back and think for a minute. Yeah, in the traditional way. Yeah, the bullion van robber. How much is in a bullion van? In Kenyan shillings, you can work that out. Yeah, in the digital world, the digital robber can actually take away $80 million. Yeah, at a strike of a few buttons, as we've seen a year or so ago, even on some of the more secure systems in the world. So boards have to take that seriously, because their entire capital can go away in a flash if they do not take digital seriously.
All right. Many thanks, Abe Bajomo. We appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
We definitely will continue monitoring the space to see how institutions are becoming adaptive when it comes to tech inclusion. What's really the story around the cement industry?
For East Africa, for ARM cement, the numbers are not yet out.